Skip it up and that up. Look, I'm going to lay down some facts for you. People are concerned that they're buying next-gen consoles and they're still not getting full 1080p experiences on all the games. All right? People are concerned, but not everyone, but there's a good chunk of people. Here they're thinking that they're going to be right up there with at least mid-range or high-end PCs, and they're not getting it. You know, and Battlefield 4 is a perfect example. It's 720p, 60 frames per second on the Xbox One, and it's 900p, 60 frames per second on the PS4. And Patrick Bach from DICE explains why that is. In an interview with Tom's Hardware, this is what he had to say about the resolution of Battlefield 4 on the Xbox One and PS4. Yeah, this sort of decision for each game team going forward that we work with. But before, getting to have 64 players and getting to 60 frames per second was the most important thing because we wanted to bring this PC game experience to the consoles. And if you play Battlefield, I think you'll agree that the actual game experience of playing on the 64-player server and everyone is interacting, and having a great frame rate is actually a significant difference from what we have had on the current generation of consoles, or now previous generation, with only 24 players, and I'm saying this, it barely reaching 30 frames per second. A lot of times it felt like it was in the mid to upper 20s. Now he goes on to talk about the trade-offs they had to make to get 60 frames per second, and how it's still Battlefield 4 in the Xbox One and PS4 is still a next-gen experience. This is what he had to say. That sort of set the bar that we need to get there, and we did get there. Sure, we did still have to do a little of a compromise on the solution. We're not running at a full native 1080p. We're running a little bit lower resolution than that. I think 900p and 720p especially are more than a little bit lower than full 1080p resolution, but okay. But I think it was well worth those trade-offs in order to make sure that we can actually have the full sort of PC game experience overall being on there. On there meaning the PS4 and Xbox One. And you're playing games in a little bit different way. You're playing with the controller on a TV. You're not playing on a PC with a monitor. Facepalm. You could play a computer easily, like the computer I have in my bedroom is hooked up to a 39-inch TV. Dude, come on. You work for DICE, you should know better. Anyway, here are my thoughts on this. Side note, you could actually flip it vice versa. I play my Wii U and PS4 on a 24-inch Asus monitor. So, come on, man. Nowadays, the difference between a flat screen TV and a computer monitor are very little. Moving on. Alright, so I know you guys are going to say, oh, Rich, you just think you're part of the glorious PC gaming master race. Okay, that was unnecessary. Oh, God. Put those away now, sir. Sorry. Thank you. But whatever, I know what you're going to say. Oh, Rich, it's not about the pixels, it's about the games and the experience. And yeah, Battlefield 4 looks a shitload better than it does on the 7th gen consoles, on the PS3 and Xbox 360. There's a lot more horsepower in the next gen systems, but is it enough to hold off for another generation of consoles, if we even have another one, which I don't think we will? Is it enough to... Is the horsepower in the PS4 and Xbox One enough to get us through, like, 6 to 10 years? And that's what I question. And it's not about, oh, I'm going to get better visuals on my PC. I'm not going into that. I don't care about that. I don't play pixels either. I want good games. But what I fear is, and what my concern is, like I've said a billion times before, is all of these developers want to give these next-gen experiences, and a few years from now, like 4 or 5 years from now, are they going to be able to do it with the PS4 and Xbox One? Are they going to be able to have these really complex AI routines, artificial intelligence, and maybe they want to make an open world game where there's some gameplay element that they want to have a really far draw distance where you could see way into the distance and they may not be able to do it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about who gives a crap about the amount of pixels just for the sake of saying, oh, I could run a game at 1080p. What I fear is that because these systems seem to be being maxed out right now, as soon as they launch, that what's going to happen a few years down the road when they want to make bigger games and the developers make more powerful engines. And I know people are going to say, well, Rich, the consoles just came out. They have to dig into the hardware and figure it out. Mark Cerny keeps saying that, and what I think he's talking about, and hopefully this will prove me wrong, Mark Cerny is a much smarter guy than I am, is that right now, I mean, if you have a gaming PC, you could still play most of the damn games out there if you have a good enough graphics card at high settings, because most games only use 2 to 4 cores of your processor. So maybe what he's talking about is in the future when they create game engines that really utilize the eight cores that both the Xbox One and PS4 have, then we'll really see them taking advantage of the hardware. But I don't know. I mean, they're x86 machines. There's really no mystery. Like, I would give them more credit if, like, say, this was they had a new cell processor and it was a new kind of architecture and developers weren't used to it. These are just really plain Jane. The Xbox One and PS4, like I've said 100,000 times before, are really just slightly customized computers. I mean, they're running on AMD chips. They're running on Radeon graphics. There's nothing in there that's like super mysterious or really proprietary. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's still concerning to me that developers are having to cut corners with new hardware, when as in the past, when you got a game console, the game console was either right up there with top-end PCs or surpassed them. If I remember right, the technology that was in the Xbox 360 processor, or GPU I mean to say, was actually 6 months ahead of anything you could get for a gaming PC at the time when it first came out. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, man. It's going to be an interesting generation. All right, folks, make sure to rate, comment, favorite, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for supporting Review Tech USA. Have a good one. Glorious PC Gaming Master Race!